11 lessons for incorporating loving kindness meditation into your mindfulness practice. So for those of you who are joining our Meta Mercenary Challenge, this is a mindfulness-based community challenge for those of us who want to cultivate more compassion, more self-love, more loving awareness, loving kindness in our lives, and in the interactions that we have with others each and every day. So there is really no more transformative practice, in my view anyway, than metta or loving kindness. And it doesn't need to be something that you sit on a cushion with your eyes closed and practice in the solitude of your own home or office. It can actually be something that you do in a very intentional and activist sort of way. It is a simple strategy for really breaking down much of the way that we are habituated to look at others, to treat ourselves. And it really opens up this amazing window into this experience of loving awareness. So I want to really quickly outline the 11 simple lessons that I think are really helpful for those of us who struggle with practicing metta or loving kindness, especially for ourselves. So there's a really hyper focus in the first few lessons here on generating the requisite metta or loving kindness for ourselves before we actually go out and endeavor to do this in the world itself, right? So day one is always this practice of metta for yourself, or lesson one, let's say, where you're wishing yourself, may I be happy, may I be safe, may I be healthy, may I be free, may I live with ease. So there are these recitations that one generally begins with that are applied to oneself. May I be happy, may I be free from suffering, may I live with ease. And essentially, this is where you are going to be generating or cultivating this attitude of friendliness or compassion to oneself. But in my own experience of doing this practice, both for myself and doing this practice with many other people, ironically, or maybe not so ironically, the biggest challenge is not sending metta or compassion or kindness to strangers. It's actually generating this for ourselves. So what I've done in this short course, and actually in the book that I've written on this as well, is really focused in the very beginning of this practice, as you're just learning how to do this as a matter of automaticity, or learning really to get into this mind state. We're going to focus on some shortcuts or some hacks that will allow you to more quickly cultivate compassion for yourself. So lesson 2 is a focus on your younger self, right? So many of us struggle with feeling self-compassion or self-love for our current selves, right? For the version of me right now, today. But it's much easier, let's say using myself as an example, to focus on my younger self, to see myself as a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, and to see a picture of myself, which I actually use and have, with a bowl haircut and a terrible outfit that my mom, put me in, and I'm sitting there in some staged sort of, space or place, and I just look so ridiculously, comically silly to myself now looking at that version of myself, that it's very easy for me to feel a lot of love for that version of me, right? That 5 or 6-year-old version of me looks so innocent and naive and full of, hope, and that it's really easy for me to get into a space where I can generate this sense of protective compassion and love, and a real sense of care for that version of myself. So lesson 2 is find a version of yourself in the past that it's really easy for you to want to wrap your arms around and care for and tell it's going to be okay. And again, I'm not going to go through all these shortcuts in a lot of detail. I'm just going to kind of run through the rest of these so we don't spend too much time on the general outline. But lesson 3 would be for your future self. So it's the same idea as your younger self, but this time you're going to look into the future and see yourself maybe at the end of life, an older version of me, let's say, that I look to and I feel an incredible amount of compassion for and care for and loving kindness towards. I see this version of myself in 30 years or 40 years, and I feel a sense of, real, genuine kindness and love. And this is really easy, again, for me to generate the requisite feelings of self-worth and self-care and self-connection and compassion that it makes generating this practice or cultivating kindness and compassion for the current version of myself much easier. And again, we're going to walk through some of this in some of the future or some of the next lessons. Lesson number 4 is, or let's say it's scenario number 4, is just imagining yourself being loved by others, like somebody who really, you have no doubt, loves you, and when you're in their presence you feel bathed, or you feel like you can bask in some degree of unconditional love, or some, you have confidence that whether it's a parent or a spouse or it actually shouldn't be a spouse, a parent or a child or a sibling, someone that you feel no romantic, intertwining with, but that you feel, really genuinely loved. If you can feel that sense of love and then kind of co-opt or borrow what they feel for you, and then you feel that for yourself. And some of these other shortcuts, if you have a struggle with all of this, you can picture puppies or kittens or, really cute animals and feel, generate this loving kindness towards a really adorable puppy. And then again, turn that around and aim that affection at yourself. And then as we get into some of the more, the more esoteric elements of this practice, for your disowned self, so your broken self, your angry self, your unevolved self, there's a whole set of lessons around this that are really powerful, where you're actually looking at the selves that we all have that are basically disowned, that we kind of hide, or we sort of stick under the basement of our awareness. And we want to send these selves loving kindness and compassion and acceptance, and wish them happiness, and may you be happy, may you be free from suffering, may you be well, may you be safe. The lesson on the body parts that sustain us is really powerful as well. And this is essentially where you're just turning your attention on all of the introspective parts of your anatomy that serve you moment to moment. Your heart for beating, your lungs for breathing, your everything that goes unnoticed in our moment-to-moment experience, but that must work for us to have an experience. So this can also be a really impactful gratitude practice, where you're recognizing how much of you is actually right in this moment, how much of you is working for you in this moment without asking anything in return. And the final steps of this sequence are, once you have the requisite loving kindness generated for yourself, then you're going to go out into the world and use this approach to find or to feel loving kindness for a familiar stranger, someone you may see every day, but rarely acknowledge, maybe someone at the store, the dry cleaner, the person in the coffee shop, someone that you have just ambivalent feelings to, but is someone that enters into your awareness on a regular basis, or at least that's how I think of this part of the practice. I've actually written a somewhat lengthy little essay called Metta for Melvin, where I describe this particular practice in my own life for a stranger in a supermarket, which was really a transformative practice for me, ascending loving kindness, wishing this person well, picturing them on the very best day of their life, picturing them laughing and smiling and being loved by their family, their friends, their children, their grandchildren, and then wishing that for them now, wishing they could have that experience always, like really generating this sense of well-wishing for this familiar stranger, to me was and is an incredibly powerful practice that is life-changing in more ways than I'm going to count right here. And then there are, sending metta for a difficult person or a challenging person, for a group or a group of people that you feel you have a crisis with or a conflict with, a disaffected group, a group that you may feel doesn't share your value system. And in today's, culture, certainly that's not a problem for most of us. We can all look and see across the street people who clearly seem to be at odds with our own values and our own beliefs and our own way of living our best lives, and I'm saying this badly, but in today's society, certainly there is an abundance of there are many opportunities to seek out folks who are, in conflict with our values, and to try to practice what's called social metta, or to practice metta for groups or within groups of people that you feel naturally, a sense of aversion to. And finally, sending metta or loving kindness to all people and then all sentient beings. This is the omnidirectional piece of the practice, where you really are trying to stoke or tune up this sense of just becoming this space of loving awareness, where you're radiating love in all directions, and that your life is actually, it becomes an act of love. And you are, essentially, or at least during the moments that you're practicing this, just feeling so consumed by these feelings of, or taken in by these feelings of unconditional love for all beings in all directions, that it almost has a psychedelic sort of flavor to it. You feel almost like you're bathing in an ocean, an endless ocean of blissful feelings that are directed not only at others, but also by dint of their arising from your own body, feel just incredibly good and incredibly, incredibly desirable. And this is really the target of this particular practice, and it's quite achievable quite quickly if you incorporate some of what we're going to be covering in these or throughout these lessons. So anyway, I hope that gives you a little bit of a basis for what we're hoping to accomplish together. And if you're interested in joining us, we truly hope you will. All right, so this is Ian again from Mindful Marketplace. I appreciate you listening. Community.mindfulmarketplace.com is where you can find the 11 lessons in loving kindness and the Meta Mercenary Challenge. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, have a wonderful day.